I started my journey as an SBA 7A BDO 9 years ago. And throughout my journey, I've consistently wanted to get better and better each year. Now, there was no Art of SBA Lending podcast when I first started out, so I had to learn it the hard way. My success didn't come overnight by any means, but I did manage to increase my income every single year. And now that I'm at the top of my game, I thought it would be a cool idea to look back at each of the 9 years and share with you my annual production and what I did to produce those numbers. So stick around. Before I get started, I wanted to share some exciting news. For the last year on this podcast, I've been asking guests for advice about leading sales teams, and that advice is about to come in very handy for me because I am going to be building out my own sales team this year. So if you know anyone who might be interested in a BDO position on my team, email me at ray@artofsba.com or find me on LinkedIn. Now back to the show. Let me take you back to 2013. I'll paint the picture for you. I had been working for a 504 interim lender for the previous 2 years, which I had begun working for out of college, and I really liked it. It was a small business, I could feel the impact I was making, and I was consistently learning. I had no intentions of leaving, but one day I was walking down Main Street, and there was a sign in the window that said, SBA Lenders Wanted. It was put up by a bank that was opening a new branch in that location. I had to call the number. Long story short, that's how I began my career as an SBA 7A BDO. So there I was in a loose-fitting suit and a tie with a rookie knot, calling on businesses trying to make 7A loans, something I had never done before. I was doing whatever I could do just to get an appointment. If there was even an inkling of a chance that that person could refer me a client, I was trying to get a meeting with them. I met with contractors, leasing agents, insurance brokers. Really was countless meetings that never went anywhere. Yeah, my pitch to these folks was about referring clients back and forth, but I barely had any clients at the time. And in hindsight, this was not the right approach. I ended up closing about $3 million that first year, which actually wasn't bad, except for the fact that the only reason I did that was because I got really lucky with a $2.2 million loan. See, I'd got a call from a banker on a deal that they couldn't do, and they had exactly 30 days to close. It was an industrial building for a metal fabrication company, and I closed it on the 30th day. I needed that deal so bad. I drove up to Ocala. I was living in Orlando at the time, multiple times throughout the process, including to deliver the commitment letter in person, which I needed to get signed on the spot. And I did. Now, keep in mind, I'm a 23-year-old at this point, and I'm sitting across the table from the owner of this company. And this is a very solid company with more revenue than I'd ever seen before. I mean, if Wells Fargo is willing to do the deal, you know it's a strong deal. And for some reason, he trusted me with the largest transaction of his life and of my life. And I was able to execute. And that was about the only thing I did right that year. But it did help me gain like a new level of confidence. I was up against Wells Fargo on the deal, and it taught me a couple of lessons. And one of the big ones that sticks with me today is to not sell on rate. You know, Wells Fargo was offering 25-year fixed at Prime Plus One. And I think I was also at Prime Plus One, but it was a variable rate. And he went with me because he believed I can execute. And the fixed rate wasn't going to do anyone any good if he couldn't close on that building before the contract expired. But those large CRE deals were few and far between for me at that time. Aside from that, I had done a lot of startup pizza franchises, so much so that they were calling me Pizza Boy at the bank. I don't know if this was true, but I just recently heard that I was about 30 days from getting fired at this point. And my manager had offered me some coaching and advised me to start looking for some more real estate deals. So I did. I started only hunting for real estate deals at this point, but the franchise stuff was still landing on my desk. So of course I'd do it. Now the bank I was working at was not the greatest, and that's why no one really put up any numbers, but they did give me my start, and for that I'm grateful. I think that we had 6 BDOs and no one really did more than like 10 million. And my second year I did 6 million, and I was probably like number 3. And I had done a couple 700K deals at that point that were real estate, and that was huge for me back then. At some point that year, my manager left and went to go start up a new kind of startup lender. Some group had acquired the old CIT license, and he was formerly a sales manager at CIT. So 6 months into laying the groundwork there, they were ready to go to market. And he called me up, and I was one of 3 salespeople that kicked off the originations at this new company, which was ReadyCap. And so we had to close 5 loans and apply for PLP. And that first year was rough. I think we squeezed out like 20 million and had PLP by the start of Q4. And I think I did like $3 million that year, but I had a solid pipeline going into the next year. So now we're heading into 2016, and I'm still doing some franchise stuff, but my average loan had grown to about 700,000. By this time, I had made a concerted effort to stop the franchise stuff. I was actively telling the marketplace that I was a 7A real estate lender, and I did not do franchise stuff anymore. And this is when my business really started to take off. Throughout my career, I found that the more I say no, the bigger my production grows. We probably had like 8 BDOs by the end of this second year here, and I closed out the year as the #1 producer with about $10 million in production. By that next year, half the BDOs had left, and so did my boss. And they brought in a new guy, and he brought in a new batch of BDOs, including some proven heavy hitters. And I had about 3 fairly flat years from that point, though I was the top producer again in 2018. But I couldn't break through to that next level for some reason. I was stuck around 15 million or so on average. And the credit box was 7A real estate. And the issue I was having was that my referral sources kept turning over because I had to say no to a lot of deals. And they'd end up getting done elsewhere. And then I would move down their list of partners as, go-to SBA lenders, or I'd lose them altogether. But honestly, I didn't view that as a problem at the time. I thought that was normal, and I thought I was doing just fine. Would I have liked to do 20 or 25 million? Sure. And at the start of some of those years, it looked like I was going to get to those numbers. I would sit there in March and I would think, there's no way I don't do 20 million this year based on my existing pipeline. 2020 came along, and again, that was going to be the year. I was on pace for like 12 million in that first quarter, and then boom, COVID hits. I don't think I had a closing for 6 months straight, but I still squeaked out a decent year. I think it was just under 10 million. Then I get to Fundex, and in my first 12 months, I closed 45 million. I took the same network of referral sources and I said, hey guys, I'm here now. And boom. I was doing a lot of things right over the years. I kept a really clean and organized database. I'd consistently marketed to everyone, and I always did the right thing when it came to my referral partners. All that's pretty simple. It's the consistency that's key. Here's where it was different. When they started sending me deals, I was able to say yes to a lot more because instead of a real estate centric box, I had more of a traditional SBA box. So what happens when you start saying yes, offering competitive structures, and can execute consistently? Your referral sources send you repeat business, a lot of it. And instead of having to churn and burn, I was able to build. I barely did any calling last year. All the work had been done over the previous 8 years. I just had to press a button, send a few emails, and I stayed active on LinkedIn. And now don't get me wrong, there were thousands and thousands of calls made to build my database in the first place, but my dues were paid. Now it was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time, and I found a shop that was a good match for me at that time. So now I'm headed into 2022. Pipeline is loaded up. I have about 30 million in the pipe. About half of that's in closing. The rest is in underwriting or about to be. And it's looking like another great year. But if I only knew then what I know now, I could have got here a lot sooner. Not that I'm complaining. And trust me, it could have been much worse. I could have been fired. But my hope is that my experiences will help other BDOs find success. And that's the big reason why I started this podcast in the first place, to pay it forward. So good luck. I hope you crush it this year. All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.